Welcome to the last lesson of the school year. We've made it. We're to the end. Summer's right around the corner. Great to see you this morning, man. Let's jump right into the lesson. Get that out of the way. Let's look and see what we have this week. We're down to 4.03 security appliances. Let's go through it. All right, so the first thing that comes to mind when you hear appliances is probably your refrigerator, your kitchen stove, maybe the washer and dryer. But in the cybersecurity world, appliances consist of network management and security tools designed to protect your networks from security threats. So we have this term unified threat management, a UTM. They love acronyms in computers, right? A UTM device is considered a security appliance. So this typically involves a single piece of hardware or software that provides multiple security functions. So a UTM appliance can combine the function of a firewall, IDS, malware inspection, and web security gateway into one. So let's look at the definition. That's an appliance or proxy server that mediates client connections with the internet by filtering spam and malware and enforcing access restrictions on types of sites visited, time spent, and bandwidth consumed. So it combines all these into one. So it's popular in most home networks. An internet service provider typically uses a modem that also contains a firewall and built-in router. Now, it isn't perfect because we haven't found anything that's perfect, right? It has its downsides. It's a single point of failure that could affect an entire network. Yeah, if your UTM fails, then the rest of the system will fail because there's so many things tied up into one there. Additionally, UTM systems can struggle with latency issues if they're subject to too much network activity. So clicking, waiting on it to load, waiting on it to load, waiting on it to load, that can be a real problem, especially in a very busy business, depending on what they're doing. So guidelines for configuring network security technologies. Of course, number one, familiarize yourself with the most common devices within the network. You need to know what you're protecting. Incorporate security gateways in the network to better control the state of traffic that enters and leaves. Implement network scanning technology like protocol and packet analyzers that stay up to date on the state of traffic in your network. And then you need to implement network intrusion detective systems to help you identify unwanted behavior on the network. Beware of the risk using an active intrusion prevention device, especially false positives. When you use that kind of device, it can block your actual employees from being able to access whatever they need. Consider using a UTM system to streamline the management of network security devices since it's multifunctioned. But be aware of the risks involved, especially as the system could become a point of failure. And you got several things that's exposed at the same time then. Antivirus software, that's where we're all very familiar with that. It's a type of security appliance originally developed to detect and remove viruses, but now it's grown to protect users from all kinds of threats, worms, trojans, adware, much more. Antivirus uses several techniques to identify malware. The two most common are signatures and heuristics. So let's talk about signatures and heuristics. A malware signature is a unique pattern of data, either in memory or in a file. Antivirus software may contain thousands of signatures, but it can only detect malware for which a signature has been identified or published by the antivirus's program authors. That's why when you have antivirus, you have to update it regularly. It updates the list because as the owners, the authors of it identify new viruses and malware, they upload that to your antivirus so it knows what to look for. So as a result, there's a period between a new piece of malware being released and the signature can be integrated with the antivirus. So when someone comes out with something brand new, your computer is going to be vulnerable until your antivirus company updates their software to catch that. So it can spread and attack unprotected systems. So, antivirus is not perfect. Heuristics means learning from experiences. So this type of detection uses rules to identify viruses based on past experience of the behavior of known viruses. So heuristic detection may execute a suspicious program in a virtual machine and analyze it for operations typical of known malware. Oh, this kind of looks like malware. It's not anything I'm familiar with and have identified previously, but it's doing the same type of stuff. So maybe it's learning. So your antivirus can learn using heuristics, can learn new problems by identifying patterns. It might also revert the program back to its original source code and look for malware-like instructions. So if the heuristic analysis considers that the file acts like a malware, it flags it as potentially dangerous. Hey, this is doing the same stuff as some stuff I know is wrong. But unlike signatures, heuristics does not require specific knowledge about individual types of malware. It can detect new malware simply by the behavior. Now, the drawback of that is it can only draw conclusions based on experience. So new malware that doesn't mimic any older malware can and often does pass through unnoticed. Page 3. Data loss prevention. Often an attacker takes data that's stored inside of a private network and moves it to an external network. Right? They're gonna copy your files. This is known as data exfiltration. Data loss prevention, or DLP, is a set of tools designed to prevent data exfiltration. It can detect potential data breaches and prevent them by monitoring and blocking data from being moved. So DLP software classifies critical data and identifies violations of policies defined by organizations. These policies are typically driven by compliance with regulations such as HIPAA, HIPAA, and PCI DSS. Once those violations are identified, the DLP enforces remediation with alerts, encryption, other protective actions to prevent users from accidentally or maliciously sharing data that could put the organization at risk. So DLP remediation occurs when it detects a policy violation. So here's some typical mechanisms for remediation. An alert only. The copying is allowed, but the management system records an incident and may alert administrator. Hey, there's this big data file being copied. Or it could block it. The user is prevented from copying the original file, but retains access. They can still access it, they just can't make any copies of it. Or perhaps the next level, quarantine. Access to the original file is denied to the user. This might be accomplished by encrypting the file where it's at, or moving it to a quarantine area in the system to where it can't be accessed. Or tombstone, the original file is quarantined and replaced with one describing the violation and how the user can release it. So they try to copy this, suddenly the file disappears, it's replaced with a new file that says, hey, you're doing something that our policy does not allow. If you actually do need access to this and are authorized, contact this person or whatever you can do to get that released. So take a guess. What is data exfiltration? Unauthorized copying or retrieval of data from a system. We didn't have to guess. They told us what that was. Page 4. Mail gateways and spam filters. Yeah, our email boxes are filled with spam, and most of it go to a spam folder automatically. Spam filters have become huge. So unsolicited email is known as spam, and we get them all the time. Spam can eat up company resources by clogging the email inboxes. You bet. If your company's getting thousands and thousands a day, it can certainly slow things down. Most email software has spam filtering built in these days, which is useful for home users. Because it used to be we got all of that in our inbox years ago, and you had to filter through it yourself. However, organizations need something that prevents spam from even getting to the mailbox, right? Because nowadays we don't want to see all that, especially in a business, because that takes a lot of your employees' time getting rid of spam. So organizations often use a gateway server with spam filtering technology. It can be implemented in two ways. The first is by blocking the spam from ever arriving in the user's mailbox using a web security gateway. And the second is using client-side filters to hide the spam. This means it can be silently moved into the junk email folder. Using both methods allowed for a layer approach. So the filters of the gateway can be slightly less aggressive. The user receives a manageable amount of spam and will be able to retrieve any falsely filtered mail because you can look in there and sometimes some legitimate email got thrown in your spam folder. Doesn't happen much these days, but it can happen. So in both cases, spam filtering needs to be tuned to ensure that valid messages are not blocked. Yeah, when you find that in your spam folder, you can generally say not spam. And the next time you get an email from that organization or person, then your computer's learned and it won't throw it in the spam folder. So check out these tips for identifying spam email. Oh, these are great. All right, let's click on that. Check the address. Does it match the name of the sender or whether the domain of the company is correct? Well, you see that all the time with the spam. It's not at Verizon.com or at SamsClub.com. It's at something really weird with a bunch of numbers usually. So RC55S dot, all of that stuff. Subject. Is the content unbelievable? Hey, you've got a $10,000 refund coming. Yeah, probably not. It's too good to be true. It's probably not true. We've looked at a lot of this ourselves during this semester. Hello, Sue. We identified an errors in calculating your tax from last payment amounting to $419.95. Is the email full of spelling and grammar errors? Oh, that's a good one, too. If they write terribly, English is not their first language. Yeah, errors in calculating of your tax from the last payment. See, that's just awkwardly. No one would write it that way. For order for us to return the excess payment, see, that's also poor English. You must need to make an e-refund account. That's not even correctly spelled. After which the funding will be credited to your specified bank account. Please click get started below to claim your refund. Yeah, professionals aren't going to write terribly and all that. So let's see. Check links. Hover over the link first. Don't click immediately. All right, that's true because you can just go over it and hover. It's not going to hover on this program, and you'll see, does it actually go to Verizon.com or BestBuy.com, or does it go to some weird link? See, like this one, like it would say ZCHZXPQT at drivefact.org. Okay, that's not my tax refund. We are here to ensure the correct tax be paid at the time right. Does the signature match how the sender would sign their emails? See, this is just easy to spot a lot of times, spam emails, to figure out, is this a real email or is it not? No, it's not most of the time. Application vulnerabilities and zero-day attacks. So attackers often target vulnerabilities in security appliances like antivirus software. This kind of attack is also known as software exploitation. Web servers, web browsers, email clients, and databases are also often targeted. So an application vulnerability is a design flaw that can cause the application security system to crash. Vulnerabilities can only be exploited under certain circumstances, but due to the complexity of modern software and the speed with which new versions must be released, almost no software is safe. A zero-day attack, that's an attack that exploits a vulnerability that is unknown to the vendor and the users. They find a hole. This happens once a flaw or a software or hardware vulnerability is exploited and attackers release malware before the developer has the opportunity to create a patch to fix it. Oh, let's hurry up and see how much damage we can do and how much stuff we can steal from these systems before they notice and fix it. So they say 0 day because it hasn't got a patch yet. Most vulnerabilities discovered by software and security researchers. Researchers notify vendors to allow them time to patch the vulnerability before releasing details to the public. So usually before we find out about it, they've already put a fix together. They've known about it for a while. They've been trying to patch it up. And then once they send the patch, they say, hey, by the way, there's a problem here that can be exploited. So be sure and update the software. It might take the vendor days to develop a patch. So it could leave the system vulnerable for days, weeks, or even years. All right, then wants to match this again with another hidden image behind there. All right, let's see what we can match up here. Well, we just talked about a 0 day attack, so that would be an attack exploiting vulnerabilities. What else do you see that matches there? Appliance used to mediate client.
Let's see. Signature and a unique pattern of data.
Okay, perfect. Say web security gateway or unified threat management. This mediates client connections, and this
The
is
appliance would be the web security thing, wouldn't it?
what this one, the appliance.
Yes, would go to web security gateway.
Yes, you're correct. And then, of course, the unified threat management is the hardware or software providing security functions. So we got this little awesome picture. Yeah. All right, man. We got our last assignment. The quiz, which probably has 5 questions. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. All right, man. It's been a good year of cybersecurity. We've played with a lot of stuff, got into a lot of interesting files and spam and looked at a lot of things. I've enjoyed having you in class. I know you're going to be exempt, so I won't see you again. So that's why I'm treating. This is our last class, man. You've done awesome. So I wish you well in wherever you're going to next, and maybe computers somewhere. So, all right, dude. Have a great summer.